Good afternoon, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today, it is an honor to present a man who is my friend, more than a friend, a brother, and more than a brother, Vladimir Iatsenko. Namaste.
Namaste.
Perhaps we need a Sanskrit word that means more than brother.
Yes. Anuja or something, yeah? Born after. Born in the same line. Anuja means younger brother, but born in the same line.
Wonderful.
Following the same path. That's a good word.
How we always begin our interviews is to ask each person, how did they first hear of Sri Aurobindo and Mother? And then we go into their life, their studies and all. But that, for me, has to be always the first and most important question. How did you first hear of Sri Aurobindo?
Well, my path is very different from most probably others, where things were easier in the open world. I was born in Soviet Union. My father and mother were communists, bureaucrats. That means something. They worked. Their profession was to work as bureaucrats. So my father was atheist and propagandist of atheism, going around telling people there is no God. But he didn't believe in God as, that person who sits on the cloud somewhere and in night dress comes and yawningly looks down on us, thinking what they are doing there. But, of course, I also don't believe in that God. So in that sense, I understand him. And of course, being born to that family, there was no such an idea that there is somewhere divine or that you can follow the path. So what happened to me was very interesting. Well, it seems that my father says that I was always curious about these things from my childhood. And I was asking him, and I remember that question, first time I asked, where are we coming from? And it was in the night, on the bed. I am a small boy, my father sits near me on the side, and I ask him, where are we coming from? Human beings. And he tells me, from apes. Well, we believed so. I said, apes, yeah, that's as close. Similar head, hands, but where apes are coming from? He said, from some other creatures. I said, from who? Can you describe?
How old were you?
I was, 6 or something.
6, my.
And he couldn't answer. He couldn't locate the origin of apes. And I thought, no, there is something not solved here. And that was it again. But then, of course, there was a situation that there was a war between Afghanistan and Soviet Union, as you remember.
Yes.
Soviet Union brought their first armies in 1980. In January, regular armies entered. And I entered with them for the first time.
Oh.
So I was a soldier in Afghanistan.
Oh.
Right. And then when I came home, I saw that everything is very weird. Nothing fits, nothing is true. Everything is like an illusion of some kind, Friends are not friends, they only pretend to be friends. I'm not interested in things, but I pretend to be interested. I pretend to love, pretend to hate. I saw the mismatch. And in Afghanistan, I realized one thing, that death does not exist. It's a very strange realization. When you deal with dead bodies, killed people who are close to you, you don't recognize them.
And you have seen them, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, in Afghanistan, yes.
Yeah, and that is maybe it's not for the interview, but it's interesting to see how the mind is being formed. Yeah, and then I saw that I started to think maybe I would think in the way that this person is transported or transferred to another division, because I don't recognize in the face the same being. After you are killed, the face changes. The body becomes heavy. You have to carry it. It's like a stone, you know.
Yes.
And you don't recognize the being. So I was thinking, all right, this is something strange. And anyhow, there was no answer that time. And when I came home, I was very depressed. I was going around. Nothing was, I was in a deep depression. I didn't know how to continue my life.
How old were you then?
I was 21. And then I met someone who told me this exactly, in Russian, of course. You know, God is. That's the phrase. And I knew it was true, immediately. And the whole world turned upside down, so to say. I became silent in the mind maybe for 3 weeks. I started to see colors, I started to see silence, I discovered beauty of poetry. Life came to me back. So from that time my journey started. I started to look into every literature, through Christian mystics, through Buddhists, Zen Buddhists, you name it, yeah?
Russian church at all? Was that of any interest?
Yeah, I was going to every possible church, looking for every possible influence, traveling and meeting people. And there was a secret society underground in Soviet Union, which was called Samizdat. Samizdat means publish yourself.
I know this very well because Dmitry von Mohrenschildt was a very close friend who was publishing Samizdat in the US.
Right.
And so how did you meet them?
Yeah, it was by accident. That very person who said that God is had access to those books which were given secretly to one another. They were usually rewritten by hand. I was rewriting them by hand.
Copied from another. Copied.
Yeah. So I am given book, for example, for 2 nights. 2 nights only. This is very sacred. You come home and you rewrite for yourself. I had so many rewritten books. Sri Aurobindo, Conversations with Pavitra, I rewrote. It was my dearest. It was my guidance to meditation. Later, when I came to Sri Aurobindo. Before, I rewrote all kinds of books. Copying was not allowed in Soviet Union. You know, if they catch you with copies, you will go to Siberia. They will put you somewhere into prison or jail, somewhere far away, that you will never come out of it. But when you rewrite, it was possible, because it's my notes for myself. They cannot complain, even if they catch you. So that was the beginning, and then I discovered Conversations with Pavitra later, and then I read this and I felt the presence. I thought, how come I feel the presence? How come that me, 23 years old, can feel this vividly? Pressure from above, this sweet presence. As he describes it in his... Then I started to go deeper, and then I found other literature. I remember when the first time I found essays on the Gita, and it was given to me, and I was in the tram already in St. Petersburg, going with this book home, and in 3 days I read the whole book. It flew in like a honey. It was no need of any interpretation. Everything was clear in that moment. This was the time when books had value. But then, what is interesting, I came to India studying Sanskrit in Pune University in 91, 92.
At what age now?
I was 30 years old.
So between 23 and 30?
I studied in the university Sanskrit department. It was like a miracle. I went there without any preparation and I entered. There were 360 people on one spot. There were only 6 places open for Indian philology department in St. Petersburg.
And 360 applicants.
Applicants for one place. And they are all prepared. They are well, and there were 3 exams. I don't know how. I was alone there, and there were 5 girls who were all red diplomas, well prepared, but somehow it happened to me. Most probably because of the Afghanistan, I think, because Soviet Union was, promoting those, their own soldiers.
Yes, sure.
So I think otherwise I would never. So Afghanistan played again good role. First as a crisis, and then as an entry to study Sanskrit. And I chose Sanskrit because I wanted to understand what Sri Aurobindo is writing about. I wanted to know the original text. Not what he writes I understood, but I wanted to have that original additional meaning, to go deeper into his meanings. And
so you graduated from university?
Yes, I graduated in Sanskrit language and literature, theoretical and general linguistics.
PhD?
But then I came to India and I had PhD in India. I had MA from Russia and PhD from India. I studied in Pune University, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, became life member of that, going deeper into language. I needed language first. But one interesting episode from Soviet Union where everything was prohibited. Sri Aurobindo was prohibited, as you know. He was considered to be a reactionist. This special term, reactionist, nobody knows what it means, but it means something not good, for which you can be jailed. And so philosophers and psychologists were not allowed to have access to his books. In our public library in St. Petersburg, which is the biggest, I think 100 million books or something, they have everything there. But Sri Aurobindo is also there, but philosophers, psychologists, sociologists, they will never have access to it. But as a linguist, I could have had. So it's kind of squarely thinking KGB didn't really see the point. So they allowed me, with special permission, to get Sri Aurobindo's books from the library. And you come to the special room, which is heavily, with this steel doors. You leave all your things outside. You cannot copy things. So, and then I remember I ordered this Secret of the Veda, 10th volume and they brought for the first time, for the first time I saw original book of Sri Aurobindo. It was always rewritten something by the hand. And they just brought that book. And nobody opened it, most probably, before. It was totally... But when I opened it, these, golden pages, they're like... I just had to touch them and to smell the book. I couldn't read. It was overwhelming presence of the book. Just touching the pages, and I was sitting there for an hour, just sitting with the book. I didn't read first time. I just left afterwards with this overwhelming. Then I came every day, started my readings. And then I wanted to compare this with India. I came to India in 91, and I rushed to, in Pune they have this spiritual bookshop there on the bank of the river, the biggest one. I went there. Do you have Sri Aurobindo's books? Sri Aurobindo, and there's all kinds of books there. Yeah, we have them at the end, at the back. You go there to the back. So I went to the back, and on the back shelves, down, there were these in dust. Nobody was looking at those books, Life Divine, Synthesis, those cheap editions, 60 rupees, 80 rupees Life Divine, 60 rupees Synthesis. So I took all the books of whatever they had. and brought to Russia because everybody had to have these treasures which we were rewriting. This was for me. I was very happy that they had very low price because we had very low stipendium,
Sure.
but I could afford all of them. And that is the difference when this knowledge is taken for granted. I think this is India is still to discover the greatest knowledge.
And the mother?
And the mother.
Tell me.
The mother, her voice, her readings. We didn't have the mother. We had only Sri Aurobindo books in that. I never read the mother in Soviet Union in Samizdat. There were no books. No books. But there was her readings, her voice. Absolute voice in every sense. It covered all possible, like organum. It has depth, it has high tones, overtones. It was the fullness of her readings. That was overwhelming. I was listening to her voice with the music of somebody brought the cassettes.
Oh.
That's the only knowledge of mother from Soviet Union. Of course, here then it changed. Mother became absolutely different. Mother, now I discover mother more and more and more. All her words, they are profound. Yeah, well, I had one book which was my, of course, favorite, I should mention, in the Soviet Union still. It is Prayers and Meditations. Yeah, that was the book on the table, and it was a guidance, how to, and the whole being recognized the approach, as if it was me saying it, as if I knew that it should be this way. It was so familiar. This was true.
Now, after Pune?
After Pune, I came to Pondicherry for the first time. I was running on Bajaj. I had a Bajaj behind the bus, and there was a rainy season, and bus was going over these roads were full of holes and boom, splashes. I came completely black, but there was no other way to follow where the Pondicherry is.
And what was this year?
It was 91.
91.
For the first time I came. Yeah. Oh, sorry. 91 I came to India. No, I'm mistaken. 91 I came to India to Pune University. I stayed 1 year and then Bhandarkar. 92. It was 92 in September I was here for the first time. And then, of course, when I came to Pondicherry, I could feel immediately I can lie down on the road and I'm at home. I arrived. Pondicherry itself, not only Samadhi place. When I arrived at Samadhi for the first time, I knew the source of all that presence. It became totally overwhelming and much more powerful. And I knew, from here it comes. That was leading me. It was as if somebody led me, I would never do this. It is not the human mind can decide such things.
And then Orville.
And then Orville. And then I came to Orville to meet with friends, and I saw this red soil. And I recognized it. It was that red soil, was everything. As if I'm from some golden soil, and again, red golden color, that beautiful, Yeah. And I felt, this is where I should be.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I started to be there. And I was accepted immediately with no problem. I had student visa still from Pune and became a Orvillian with student visa from Pune. There was no problem at that time. But later, of course, things changed.
And then you started studying or teaching?
Yes, I had many people, adults especially, first Russians. We started to study immediately Sanskrit. Everybody was there engaged. And
Where were you living?
I was living in New Creation with the Russians together. That was a campus of all the Russians being there.
I see.
Very basic conditions, but very nice.
When did you start working at Savitri Bhavan?
Oh, from the beginning when Savitri Bhavan started to be Savitri Bhavan. Immediately we connected with Shraddhavan, and I brought all that in, and I had classes there constantly going on. I was recording all the talks of Nirod, of everyone, of
really?
Udar. I have these original, there. I will share with you this. This will be very valuable.
Well, Nilisha has started uploading things on this called SoundCloud, and it's only audio. So this will be very interesting also. But also on our website we'll do it.
Sure. These are very valuable videos, yes.
So now transition from Orville to Surat.
Right. One thing I didn't say, the why Sanskrit was so important for me, and still it is continuing to be this line of development, is that somehow I discovered in Sanskrit that the system of roots generates or creates all possible engagements and contextual meanings. So the language creates the world, so to say, the word creates the world. Through the systematic, if we can imagine, it's a system of etymons, or the system of related sounds ideas, as table of chemistry of Mendeleev, if you take. If this is the position of the word or the sound, then the meaning is this. So in that system you could see and feel the meaning. So when I analyzed all the roots, I saw that the meaning is changing accordingly to the sound. If you start reading Sanskrit dictionary, even if you open now, you will see that on one page, word after word, the meaning will not deviate very far, will change only in shade. Shades of meaning are changing slowly. While the sound is changing, the meaning is changing slowly. So the sound and meaning are related. If you take English dictionary, you will not see this. You will see jump of the meaning, unrelated meanings. But in Sanskrit, they are all related. It's slowly, gradual change. And that is something which was somehow, I was brought into it. I think Sri Aurobindo kind of bestowed upon me some kind of understanding, because this is beyond human mind. But then I started to analyze how it works. And already in the university I could read the texts. For example, we had a workshop on Rig Veda, and Rig Veda is a very difficult text because in each hymn you have 2-3 words which are met only in this hymn, nowhere else, only once. Each hymn has 2-3 words which are met only in the hymn, never before nor after. Very archaic, ancient language. And I could figure out what it means through this system of etymons, the meaningful relations. And my teacher was asking me, how do you know that it means this? We never read this hymn before.
Who was your teacher? Where?
There was, in Soviet Union, in the department, there was a person, Tatyana Iosifovna Aranskaya. She was the professor of Sanskrit language. She always wondered, how could you figure out the meaning? I said, in the roots. The roots and context you can figure out. So the language itself becomes the tool, the means for knowledge. Not guru, but language. Language is the guru. That is the Veda. That's why it was so important to preserve it. So with this mind, I started to study and to go deeper, and then, of course, I came to Surat, and Surat wanted exactly this. Our university exactly was looking for this, for Sanskrit knowledge, which would be academic and not academic totally. So this is where they come together. There is a deeper sense, because Western approach or Western Indology does not accept this way, and theoretical linguistics also does not look at it in this way. They believe that phonema doesn't have meaning. The sound is meaningless. So, and here we kind of clash. So I have completely different idea. Sound has meaning. It's psychological.
You mentioned to me the other day a couple of terms like shooting a rifle.
Right. In Sanskrit, all words are transparent in meaning. You don't need to translate them. If you take, for example, asanda or asanam, it is from root as, to sit, and this is chair. Or you take any word and it will give you the sense of what it does. Griham is the house. Why from root grach? To hold. So it is the holding place, which is holding all the or any, for that matter, or vihagach, the bird, the traveling in the sky. So you will know the meaning. It's not really difficult if you know the roots. So it all relates. So the etymology is transparent. It's not like in English, why it is chair to sit, we do not know. We have to remember when chair is to sit, and so on. Rifle is to shoot. There you know it.
And rifle, you explained, was...
Yeah, shooting place. I was just explaining how it could be created. Every word can be created from the root, which will explain what the thing does. And that's how things are created, how the lexemas are created. When I asked in the university our professors, maybe it's off the track a bit.
Oh, that's fine.
About lexemas, so how do we know what lexema means? For example, table. How do we know from the word table what table is? And he says, we don't know. You have to read the dictionary where it is describing that table is a thing which is flat on 4 legs preferably, and so on, made out of wood. But I said, you are describing the object. You are not giving me a sense of language, of the root. They have no idea even about this in the Western linguistics, because sound does not have meaning. So here we are. We have to recover this knowledge of our language. We have to see how deep it goes and how important it is for us.
And what did you receive from Secret of the Vedas?
Right. The Secret of the Veda was my, of course, most difficult book for me. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Something on the level of Savitri. But it was the most desirable book, together with Savitri. They somehow come together. Now, over many years reading it and understanding what Sri Aurobindo did is profound. He discovered the philological method of the rishis. They packed knowledge into the language. So now we can read it, we can get the influence of it through reading it, through dwelling on it, through articulating it, thinking about it. It will reveal itself. That's how rishis describe the Vedic hymns. They say, I am like a carpenter who creates the chariot. I created this hymn to rise to heaven in consciousness. So the hymn is the means, the chariot to rise in consciousness to heaven. So these are the vehicles of our ascent.
I'd like to ask you, I know we're running, but I'd like to ask you a bit about Mother's saying about the national language of India being Sanskrit.
Right. Well, there was the whole movement, where after independence and Sanskrit lost only in one voice. Do you know that?
No.
It was 51 against 50, or 50 was against 49.
Wow.
Only one voice difference. And there was a great movement. Even Muslims joined this movement. They wanted Sanskrit. There was a Muslim teacher of Sanskrit who came to the minister, and they were debating, discussing this. And this is a well-known anecdote, but which is true. And he said, "But where do you see Sanskrit today, minister? Everybody speaks other languages, and you want Sanskrit as a national language." And he says, "Muslim teacher, may I suggest something, sir? Please go ahead." He says, why do we keep in our emblem the lion? Where do we see the lion today in India? There are only donkeys. Let us put donkey into the emblem of India. This was the anecdote which was... It's a good suggestion. Yeah? If Sanskrit is not spoken, doesn't mean it shouldn't be. That it should not be national language of India. I hope one day we will come to it. I was also not very fond of idea of making it everyday language with consciousness we have. It's a very high consciousness, language of high consciousness. When I was in Shibiram, where we spoke and conversed only in Sanskrit for 21 days, 800 scholars from all over India in Delhi. We lived there, we cooked there, we played only in Sanskrit. There was one condition, not to use any other language, ever. So nobody spoke any other language, only Sanskrit. And we studied and we played games in Sanskrit. So after 21 days you come out, it's another world. Altogether different world. I came home, my neighbors are the dearest friends. They were so not good to me. Now you love them, you don't remember anything wrong. You don't have the concepts such as, don't worry, be happy, or you have to be somebody, you have to fight for your way. That's what English creates. Yeah? English in this particular setting. But Sanskrit doesn't have this. Doesn't have those jokes, doesn't have those preferences. It builds another personality. So I would not like to drag it down to the level of
common speech.
I would love to elevate everybody up.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.